Nigel Farage.
Good evening, everybody. Well, it was the long-awaited, anticipated, great Brexit speech by our Prime Minister, Theresa May. And I have to say that I don't believe that you should, in politics, oppose somebody because they've worn a different coloured badge at the last election to you. You should give praise where it's due. And I have to say that I feel this evening reasonably encouraged by a lot of things that she said. We started off, of course, with a very clear statement that we are leaving the European Union, the thing that I was told for 20 years was completely impossible and only lunatics would ever support. She made it clear we wouldn't stay part of any of it. We were leaving. She restated, because she gets it, she's a clever politician, she restated we are taking back complete control of our borders so that we will decide who comes to this country, regardless where they come from in the world. We'll do it on merit. And that is something I know that nearly 80% of you listening to this show tonight will agree with. We even, on immigration, had a remarkable admission from her. Just listen to this.
In the last decade or so, we've seen record levels of net migration in Britain. And that sheer volume has put pressure on public services like schools, stretched our infrastructure, especially housing, and put a downward pressure on wages for working class people. As Home Secretary for 6 years, I know that you cannot control immigration overall when there is free movement to Britain from Europe.
Yes, I know, Prime Minister, we were telling you that when you were Home Secretary from 2010, but at last we've got an admission that you cannot control immigration as a member of the European Union. That's good. The things that really excited me were the new things that she said today. If you remember, a week ago, she did a big interview with Sophie Ridge on Sky. She hinted that we'd probably be leaving the single market. Then the next day she appeared to contradict it. Confusion. Today she was clear. We are leaving the single market, even if Nick Clegg is crying in his beer at this very moment, but she made it absolutely clear. Good. She also said something that I simply never thought I would hear a British Prime Minister saying. In fact, with this and many other phrases, I thought to myself, listening to this, these are all things I've been saying for 20 years. I've been mocked and derided for. We've now got a British Prime Minister telling us their policy. She said that no deal was better than a bad deal. And I like that, because that message that it sends to Mr. Juncker and to Brussels is we're quite prepared to walk away from the table. You know, we are not going to go down on bended knee and beg for concessions. We're perfectly clear. And then she said something that I thought was great. My big criticism of her interview last week was that it lacked vision. She was talking too much about process, too much about Europe, and not about the world. And today, 3 times, she talked about global Britain. We're going global. Wow. Donald, are you listening? Because that's exactly what he was giving us the opportunity to do. So all of that was really, really good. Strong, clear, new, decisive. I loved it. There are, of course, worries. How long is all this going to take? You know, I mean, we're still paying £30 billion a day net to be members of this. We still have an open door to nearly 500 million people. I worry there was a bit of confusion over whether we'd stay part of the customs union. Technical, perhaps. She said we may have to go on still paying contributions. I suppose you could call it bribery for access to the single market, although given the mess the Mediterranean's in, perhaps it'll count as foreign aid in years to come. She did not mention fishing once in her speech, just not once. And I would have thought, getting back our territorial waters, it was pretty clear. Certainly Bob Geldof, of course, didn't think we ought to, but I do. That didn't get mentioned. And there is the big question that when Trump says, let's do a trade deal, let's get it done in months, is she going to tell Europe, forget it? I'm sorry, Mr. Juncker, don't tell us we can't do this. We're going to, in the national interest, begin those negotiations. So there are questions. And perhaps in the second hour, we'll go into some of the detail of trade deals, of what it might mean if we're forced to walk away from the table, what the upsides and the downsides of that are. But for now, the big question to you is, has she done enough to convince you that Brexit is really going to mean Brexit? And to get involved, please call me on 0345 60 60 973. You can text me on 84850. You can tweet me on @LBC. And please don't forget the hashtag Farage on LBC. and you can watch the show live. Go to the LBC Facebook page now. And our first caller is Matthew in Heathrow. Matthew, has she done enough to convince you that Brexit will really mean Brexit?
Well, Nigel, I'm a Remainer, but I accept we have to go for the Brexit, and I'm for that. But,
yes.
I mean, it sounded like it was you doing the speech today, because you said exactly the things I heard from you. No deal. A bad deal is better than no deal.
Yeah.
So, but basically, I mean, I think she's basically telling you and all the Brexit people what they want to hear. But I think now she sort of said that. I mean, I think, do you think now she wants to still trigger Article 50? Because we're not ready for the Brexit. As soon as we trigger Article 50, it's going to be 2 years of nothing. And near the end, it's going to go to Parliament, and they're going to refuse it, and there'll be an election, and it'll be then a soft Brexit. I mean, do you think the best bet now is not to do the Article 50, to focus on getting ready, what she said she wants to do, and then we could get the Brexit when we're ready? We could do Article 50, 90 days, say, you're not going to give us what she wants. She's been clear what we want now, and then we leave. But we were ready to do all the bits we have to do to make it work.
Well, Matthew, I mean, she will trigger Article 50. I mean, that is in the Lisbon Treaty. It's a treaty that was passed into British law without, I hasten to add, a referendum, sadly. But I think they will try and play by the rule book as it is. But I think what she made, well, I say clear, what she basically said today was that if the whole process found us, she wouldn't be scared at the end of it of there not being a deal, because no deal, and that would mean, Matthew, having WTO rules, on tariffs. And again, as I said, we'll do the detail later. But she's made it clear that she is prepared at some point to walk away. So Article 50 will happen. And at the end of the process, she did say today for the first time she would put the vote to the House of Commons and the House of Lords. Now, you think that they would reject a deal, whatever shape it was. I'm not so sure, because I think that there are a lot of Labour politicians who, whatever they may think about the European project, know that in their constituencies, a majority of their voters voted Brexit and want it to happen. So Matthew, we are going to go down this Article 50 route. Of that I've no doubt. If, come 2019, Parliament rejected it, well, boy, we would have a very exciting general election. But what I like, Matthew, and what interests me is, and I don't hear it from Clegg, and I don't hear it from Tim Farron, and I don't hear it from Lord Mandelson, but increasingly I get people like you, Matthew, that I speak to, who are genuine Democrats, who say, look, I was on the other side, but I think probably we ought to just get on with it. So Matthew, it is going to happen, but it might take a very long time. That's my only concern. And I thank you, Matthew, very much indeed for your call. Jason in Kensington, has she done enough to convince you?
She has indeed, and congratulations, Nigel, on everything that you've done, because in terms of what Theresa's done today, she's convinced me to shut my company down and move to Dublin. Possibly Dublin, I haven't decided yet.
Is that because you want to pay cheaper corporate taxes?
No, not at all. It's simply because I need access to the common market, and the professional services need too. As you very well know, a legacy firm has just filed for bankruptcy within the last week, a British legacy firm that was actually heavily invested in by Asia, and that cost, 75,000 jobs? And it's the foreign money that's coming in from the US. The only reason that you've got banks such as Goldman Sachs and so many others in this country is simply because they need to be a part of the common market. And the emerging markets, which Britain was the capital city of in Europe, which, as you know, being an ex-city boy yourself, is no longer going to be viable.
Oh, Jason, if we're Jason,
in the professional services,
Jason, if we're dealing in emerging markets, we're dealing in. Hang on. Jason, let's just get down to emerging markets, shall we? You mentioned London being a centre for trading with emerging markets. None of those emerging markets are members of the European Union. And whilst Europe is an important marketplace, what Theresa said today is we're going global. What on earth could be wrong with that?
Well, there's nothing wrong with going global, but you the other day mentioned Singapore, you mentioned South Korea, you mentioned Hong Kong, you mentioned a variety of others with smaller GDPs who are global positions. But it's their position, their global positioning next to the emerging markets that makes them viable targets for foreign investment. As you very well know, Hong Kong being a financial center and a trade center, Singapore being now the key center of arbitration in Asia, and so on and so forth.
Jason, I get your points. Jason, I'll just give you one fact. Foreign and direct investment into the United Kingdom in the first 10 months, which is all we got the figures for, in 2016 was 3 times the level that it was in 2015. And I would argue, if we get the Brexit deal right, actually there'll be more people from all over the world who'll want to invest in this country. We're asking, has Theresa May done enough to convince you? You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively here on LBC. It's 6:15. Let's get the latest news headlines with Rupert Bhatia.
The Prime Minister says Britain cannot stay within the European single market after Brexit. But in a major speech on her plans for leaving the EU, Theresa May says she wants to remain in the customs union. And it's reported 100 people have been killed after a Nigerian fighter jet mistakenly bombed a refugee camp in the country. This is LBC.
LBC Travel, good evening. I'm J. Louise Knight, and on the M4 in West London, one lane is blocked westbound just after junction 2 for Brentford on the elevated section. A car's broken down. There are queues back to North End Road now at the A4. And then the M4 in Berkshire is struggling eastbound. There's been an accident after Hungerford at junction 14. That's blocking 2 lanes. The M25 in Essex, very slow on cameras between 28 at the A12 down to 29 at the A127. One lane is shut there with an accident. The A13 in East London has solid queues eastbound all the way from Canary Wharf up towards Ferry Lane at Rainham. Only one lane is open for emergency repairs. That's causing queues south on the North Sector from the Ilford flyover. The M40 in Warwickshire is queuing northbound towards a broken down lorry after Bishop's Tashbrook at junction 13. And for London Underground, no service on the Central line from Hainault to Woodford with a signalling problem. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Nick Clegg is former Deputy Prime Minister, now of course Lib Dem European spokesperson.
Anything could happen, particularly in these extraordinary times. We have today the Chinese president, the leader of a communist nation, lecturing the assembled capitalist elite in Davos on the virtues of free trade, while the leader of the free world in Washington is espousing protectionism. That kind of role reversal has never been seen before.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
Calling all minicab drivers. Here's an exciting new offer from Greyhound Cars. We're now offering rent or commission deals for both full or part-time drivers, and there's even a bonus if you recommend a friend. To speak to us about our new rent or commission deals, call 020 3388 3388 or visit greyhoundcars.co.uk. Greyhound Cars, now an official partner of Cab Guru. More cars, more choice, faster service and national coverage. Download the new Cab Guru app today.
Introducing QuickBooks. Whatever your line of work or business, QuickBooks helps you manage your self-employed tax and finances on the move. Get paid faster by creating and sending invoices in minutes. Snap and store your receipts so you'll never forget an expense. And wherever your job takes you, with auto mileage tracking, you'll be sure to claim every mile you're entitled to with a simple swipe. Be ready for self-assessment. Search QuickBooks Self-Employed now online or in the App Store. QuickBooks. Tax is done. Feel awesome.
At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% real hardwood.
And it's also 50% off.
But most importantly, it's 100% real hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also 50% off.
At Oak Furnitureland, quality and price are both important. So make sure you don't miss our winter sale, where everything's 100% real hardwood with up to 50% off. Our biggest ever winter sale is now on. Visit oakfurnitureland.co.uk to find your nearest store.
Oh. What's the anxiety this time, Joe?
Oh, I think I'm losing it.
In the mind?
No, losing the sales. I need to record, join and listen to calls.
What, to boost the profits?
Yes, and take business calls on any device.
Ah, I've got the answer. You need to take the Vonage.
Yes.
Vonage, the perfect phone system for small business. Packed with clever features to make your business better. Keep calm and talk clever with plans from £12 a month. Visit vonage.co.uk. Excludes VAT at 20%. Terms apply.
What is the longest tube on the London Underground? What is the collective name for a group of bears? What did Queen Victoria ban from her own funeral?
If you know, you have exceptional general knowledge. But at Hiscox, our insurance experts have chosen small business as their specialist subject. That's why more than 200,000 UK businesses rely on us to help provide the right cover. Hiscox, business insurance for the small and the brave.
Oh, and in case you were wondering, A, the central line, B, a sleuth of bears, C, the colour black.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
So has the Prime Minister done enough? Has she convinced you that Brexit means Brexit? Well, I have to say, as somebody who's been a long-time critic of hers, and don't forget she was a Remainer, and she's taken ages to trigger Article 50, and even I have to say the new things she's had to say today are good. They represent real progress. We're going to be a global country, outward-looking. Great. No deal. Better than a bad deal. Agreed. And decisive. We won't be part of the single market. It is progress. There are worries, but it's progress. Call us on 0345 6060 973. Text us on 84850. And remember, you can watch the show on Facebook Live. Go to lbc.co.uk or LBC's Facebook page now. And your messages and comments are coming in on Facebook. John Sherwin says, Theresa May echoing Nigel today when she said, no deal is better than a bad deal. Brilliant. Rachel Porter says, why, if Nigel was so keen to leave the single market, did he spend the referendum campaign insisting that the Norwegian model was the way to go? I didn't, Rachel, but you know what? They can catch their own fish. Something the Prime Minister didn't even mention today. And Anne Finlayson says, Nigel, I keep reading that we can walk away from the EU without Article 50. So why is she going down that route if there's a quicker alternative? Because, Anne, it's in a treaty and we want to be seen to be playing by the rules. And hopefully, now that the Prime Minister has made it clear that we're not going to negotiate free movement of people, we've made our minds up, we don't want to be part of a single market, we simply want to talk about trade and tariffs and a new relationship based around that. Hopefully, Anne, what we're going to see is a bit of common sense. And the chief negotiator for the Commission, Michel Barnier, was saying himself last week that actually this could damage banks in Europe far more than it could damage banks in London. The finance minister in Bavaria is saying how concerned they are because they sell us a lot more motor cars than we sell them. Maybe, just maybe, she's laid down some conditions here that mean we can focus the conversation in the right place. I wonder what Tommy in Hayes thinks. Tommy, has she done enough to convince you we're going to get the Brexit that we voted for?
No, it's great to hear you, Nigel. No, I am worried. And just one thing, I've only had snippets of the speech today. I've been working, from different news bulletins, but I'm worried about the idea that the deal, the final deal, will go back to Parliament, given that the makeup of Parliament overwhelmingly were for Remain. And I'm really worried about that, Nigel. I'd like to get your view on that.
Yeah, I think the argument in the end that was really convincing, Tommy, was that under this treaty, under Article 50, under the route we're going down, the European Parliament will have a say on the final deal. It would be very difficult to say that the European Parliament has a say if the British Parliament doesn't have a say. That, of course, Tommy, is assuming that we spend 2 years negotiating. I mean, frankly, if we get 4 or 5 months down the road and, Mr Juncker, have to obviously catch him before lunch, but if Mr Juncker is being wholly intransigent, it may well be we have to say, look, guys, we are wasting our time here. We're going through a negotiating process where you simply don't want to play ball. We're going next Thursday. It could come to that, Tommy, but I think they will try to do it by the treaty. And you're right, Tommy, Parliament is full of Remainers, but I tell you something, and you clearly were a Brexiteer. What I'm picking up, Tommy, are a very large number of people who voted Remain who are now seeing the economy has not fallen off a cliff. Our growth is better than the rest of the Eurozone, that the EU itself has got desperate problems with the migration crisis, with the Eurozone banks in Italy going through terrible problems, with big disruptive elections this year taking place in the Netherlands and France and Germany and perhaps even in Italy too. And I think, Tommy, actually, we're getting to a position where if there was a referendum tomorrow, it would not be 52% in favour of leaving. The figure would be very much higher. So I think, Tommy, when this goes back to Parliament, let's say in 2019, whatever they think, whatever their own political principles are, I suspect they'll vote to save their skins because they'll know a majority of their constituents want the Brexit deal, whatever it is, to happen. Does that reassure you?
Thanks, it really does, Nigel. Thanks very much, and I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you, Macy. Texts and tweets coming in. A text here, Nigel, no mention of the $350 million for the NHS, or was that another lie? Terence, well, I don't think that was the finest hour of some on the Leave campaign, and I said so at the time, and I go on saying it. They should have said £220 million a week net, which we could spend on the NHS or anything that we choose. Slight concern, though, Terence, is that today, she said, even after we leave, we may have to go on paying some money, but not the vast sums of money we're currently contributing. Nigel, is it turning from a Brexit to a quick exit? Ian asks. Well, I'd like to think so, Ian, but I'm not sure. In fact, I think my biggest criticism, and I'm pleased with what she said today, I think my biggest criticism is it's all going to take a very long time. And she even said that if at the end of the 2 years there isn't a satisfactory deal, we can walk away, but there would be, particularly for the city, transitional interim arrangements, and goodness knows how long they're going to last. So no, I don't think that the exit looks any quicker after today, but I do think at least the direction of travel looks better, and I think her negotiating position is now stronger. A tweet here, maybe the referendum should simply have asked, do you want to leave the world's largest trading group? That's from Rob Nathan. Rob, I tell you what, mate, it's not doing all that well, is it? You know, when we joined it all those years ago, it was very powerful. It's not looking so powerful now. I'm going to ask Carol in Twickenham. Has she done enough, Carol?
No, she hasn't. But my God, do I feel sorry for that woman. All those simpering, weak, spineless men that she's surrounded by. It takes a woman to try and get us out of this big, horrible mess. And also, Mr. Farage, I'd like to thank you for giving me the biggest laugh to start this week.
Yeah.
You're bothered about the fishermen. You must be joking. You used it when you needed it, and you couldn't. Oh,
well, I can't. Carol, I could not take stronger offence to that. I am a strong defender of our fishing community and of getting back our territorial waters, and I will campaign like crazy over the course of the next 2 years if getting back our territorial waters is not put on the agenda. We are an island, and I tell you what, Carol, the fish that swim in our seas are the greatest renewable resource this country owns.
Can I just say one thing? This island will be dissolving over the years and will be sucked into a nice big black hole like the Bermuda Triangle, the way things are going. They're spineless. Uriah Heep's got more of a spine than this lot put together.
But Theresa May, you've got confidence in. But Theresa May, you've got confidence in, yeah?
No, I feel sorry for her. She doesn't want to be in that. Nobody else stepped forward. Nobody wants to be a Brexit, whatever you call it.
Right, but Carol, you were a Remainer. I mean, would you not accept that the economy has not fallen off a cliff?
What I won't accept is nothing is happening in this country. There are no policies. There never were any policies. It was a more likely stick two fingers up and get back. I think it was a personal vendetta through a group of people, and I'm sick and tired of hearing we all wanted it, Mr. Farage. I can tell you we didn't.
Well, you voted the other way, but I promise you, Carol, a lot of Remainers accept in a democracy that it was a binary question. We gave an answer, we got a result, and that was it. I wonder what Thomas in Worthing, West Sussex, thinks. Are you satisfied with Theresa May, Thomas?
No, but probably not for the same reasons you would expect.
Go on.
First, just quickly point out there's a 2013 investigation that was done by IMF that actually forecast the Commonwealth economy overtaking the EU in 2019. So actually, I think people should keep their eye on the Commonwealth, not the EU, and stop worrying. But the point I wanted to make is the thing I don't think many people are taking notice of. Theresa May seems to be presenting opportunities for rebellion against the Brexit vote. She's giving the vote to the House of Commons. She's going to give a vote to the House of Lords. And you've got Tim Farron jumping from radio station to TV station earlier, saying that, it would be undemocratic not to give the people a second referendum on the terms. And what she's done by giving the House of Commons and the House of Lords a vote again, so it would be kind of like a fourth vote after the Lisbon Treaty vote and the Referendum Act vote, is she's giving them, the House of Commons and the Lords, more votes than the people, and this is going to present the likes of Tim Farron and Clegg and Ken Clarke the opportunity to say, well, hang on, shouldn't we be giving the people another vote? So I think the thing I fear is the possibility that this could be dragged on into 2020 and it will become like a second referendum in itself.
Thomas, if the House of Commons, or dare they, the House of Lords, were in any way to stop us getting the right Brexit deal, then there would be hell to pay. I take the point, there's risk in it, but I don't think she really had much option. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. We have an extended show this evening to get more of your voices on air in response to Theresa May's speech. It's 6:30 and time for the news with Rupert Bartier.
The Prime Minister says Britain won't stay in the EU single market after Brexit. Theresa May has been setting out her plans for a clean break from the EU. And speaking during his nightly show here on LBC, Nigel Farage described today's speech as positive.
Hopefully, now that the Prime Minister has made it clear that we're not going to negotiate free movement of people, we've made our minds up, we don't want to be part of a single market, we simply want to talk about trade and tariffs and a new relationship based around that. Hopefully, what we're going to see is a bit of common sense.
And stay with LBC for continued reaction. It's reported between 50 and 100 people have been killed after a Nigerian fighter jet mistakenly bombed a refugee camp in the country. The aircraft was meant to be targeting Boko Haram fighters. LBC weather. Cloudy in most areas into the evening, a low of 0 Celsius. Another overcast day tomorrow with some drizzle and a high of 10 degrees.
LBC Travel, good evening. I'm Louise Knight, and in West London the A4 is queuing westbound from North End Road all the way out onto the elevated section of the M4 because a car has broken down. The M25 in S6 queuing clockwise towards an accident before 29 at the A127. That's shutting one lane, and we've still only got one lane open on the A13 in East London, heading eastbound after Ferry Lane at Rainham. They've been doing some emergency repairs all afternoon. Delays of well over an hour and a half back past Canary Wharf. As a result, the North Circular is slow south from the Ilford flyover, and northbound on the A12 it's queuing from the Lee interchange up to Redbridge. In Greater Manchester, one lane is closed clockwise on the M60 after Carrington at junction 8 with a police investigation that's causing queues. M73 in Glasgow slow south towards an accident before the roadworks at junction 1 for the M74. Good news for the tube though, there's now a good service on the Central line. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
Ah, the sound of the sea. There's only one place you'll hear lawnmowers this far from land, because only Celebrity Cruises have up to half an acre of real, finely manicured lawns on board. Perfect for picnics or evening concerts under the stars. This is just one of many delightful surprises awaiting you on board a Celebrity Cruise. Unpack once and see the world. And if you like surprises, you'll love the sound of what's coming up in a few moments. Keep listening.
Welcome to London's exquisite Indian dining experience, Marla Restaurant. The finest North Indian cuisine in the most charming setting. Find us in the heart of one of London's divine hidden gems, St Catherine's Dock. Marla Restaurant. Visit us in St Catherine's Dock or go to marlarestaurant.co.uk.
Marla. Discover a jewel in London's secret paradise. When it comes to finding something new, start the conversation at Hello You, because after all is said and done, all you need is a special someone. Sign up for free at helloyoudating.com.
Here's one for Alessia Sanazaro, co-founder of Choosic. Her app finds beats for happy feet. She's rocking her own business, yeah? But every leading lady needs backup. And by GoDaddy, she found it. With domain and web hosting to put her business online, now she's got investors putting their hands up in the air.
Go Choosic, go Daddy. Taking your business online.
Luxurious things come to those who wait. Book a celebrity cruise before the end of February and you'll receive a free drinks package and up to £500 off selected sailings and staterooms. Why? Because right now the world is open and the sale is on. Visit celebritycruises.co.uk or contact your travel agent. Cruise Critic awarded, APTA and ATOL protected.
So, Joe, keep calm. What's causing the anxiety?
I need my business phone system to work on any device.
To take the calls anywhere?
And save me money.
Like saving with unlimited UK mobile and international calls?
Yes, yes.
Ah, I see the problem. You need to take the Vonage.
Vonage, the perfect phone system for small business. Packed with clever features to make your business better. Keep calm and talk clever with plans from £12 a month. Visit vonage.co.uk. Excludes VAT at 20%. Terms apply.
I was quite out of sorts before I did my tax return. When I looked in the mirror, all I would see were grey hairs. But you see, now it's done, I'm feeling good. And this silver fox is ready to purr.
You too can find inner peace. Do your tax return online by the 31st of January and avoid a £100 penalty. Go to gov.uk/self-assessment and don't forget to pay what you owe.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
So Theresa May's big speech, she said some good things, she said some new things. I've said it's good progress, but there are worries, there are concerns, no mention of fishing, for one, and of course, a terrible track record. Now, we did get an admission today from her that you can't control immigration as an EU member, something we've been screaming at her for 6 years. But don't forget, this was the person who told us she would tackle radical Islam, she would cut immigration to tens of thousands a year, and for 6 years never delivered. So, do these fine words convince you? Are you convinced? Stephen Deal, are you convinced that Brexit is going to mean Brexit?
I'm happy with the single market bit, Nigel.
Yep.
Very happy about that. That's the main thing. I mean, convinced. She sounded convincing, didn't she?
She's really good at that, Steve, isn't she? Yeah.
Yeah, she is. Only times I'm going to tell, Nigel. But my biggest thing today was the Tim Farron interview, the outrageous Tim Farron interview. Of course, he brought your name up again, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he tells Leave voters how we voted, and we didn't vote to leave the single market.
Yes, I mean...
Nigel, can you please tell him and put him in his place, because we're sick of him.
I've done my best to try and ignore him, actually, Steve. But yes, he said several things today. He said Theresa May is waving the white flag before negotiations have even begun. He said she's pursuing an extreme version of Brexit. He said the whole thing is undemocratic, and I don't really quite get that. Frankly, Steve, I don't think his response, frankly, is going to do him or the Liberal Democrats a whole load of good. And the point, Steve, I keep making is that not everybody, but an increasing number of Remainers are as Democrats accepting the result, and many others are saying, do you know what, my house price hasn't collapsed, it's OK, let's get on with it. Steve, the one that I'm even more curious about is the response from the leader of Her Majesty's opposition. Now, you would have expected, on a big political day like this, something pretty searing to have come from Jeremy Corbyn, and this is what he said, Steve. See what you make of this. Corbyn said, she makes out this is a negotiating threat to the 27 EU countries, but it's actually a threat to British people's jobs, services and living standards. This speech should have been given in Parliament, where MPs could ask her questions on behalf of their constituents. She talks about Brexit restoring parliamentary sovereignty, but once again she is determined to avoid real scrutiny of her plans. Isn't that knockout, Steve?
Oh, for God's sake.
I mean...
They'll make up their mind, won't they? You know, they've been on for months. They want Theresa May and the government to tell us exactly what's going on. She does a bit today, and they've got to moan about everything, haven't they? I'm sick of them, mate. I'm absolutely
sick. Well, that's why I've tried, Steve, to be, and it's well known that I've been UKIP for a couple of years, I've tried today to rise above party politics, to say well done for talking about the single market, for saying we'll walk away if there's no deal. Well done for doing those things, but we've got some questions to ask you. Steve from Deal, my favourite town in Kent, thank you very much indeed for your call. Facebook messages, Mick Hudson says, Labour's response is predictable. Watch Nick Clegg's wimpish response. He's a has-been and needs to go away quietly. We've had enough of the doom and gloom merchants, including, of course, Mick, the Governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, who's now said he's really surprised that we haven't sunk into some desperate recession. So one or two of them are beginning to retract their words. I am very pleased to say. I wonder what Anthony in Watford makes of today's speech and whether he's convinced that Theresa May will do what she says.
Hello, Nigel.
Good evening.
Good evening. I am a staunch Remainer.
Yep.
I have been when I've listened to your arguments.
Yep.
Even Thatcher did not touch the common market with her strong views. I think you've done more damage to this country than Oliver Cromwell managed to do. History always repeats itself. Why are we jumping off a cliff? There is no need.
You're quite right, Anthony. Democracy is valueless. We shouldn't have bothered to fight the wars. We should just have allowed dictators to take us over. What's the point in voting to determine your own future? That, Anthony, is what it's all about. It's about us, the people, being able to hire and fire our leaders. Surely that is of value.
Why are we going down this road when the facts weren't given to the general public? Lies, lies and more lies.
Well, let me give you a fact, Anthony. If you stay in the European Union, you cannot make your own laws, your own courts will not be the ultimate arbiters, and you're governed from elsewhere. A vote to leave means we're in control again. Doesn't mean we'll get it right, doesn't mean it'll all be perfect, but we are in charge of our destinies and we have power as individuals to shape our future. That is what this was really all about.
Why didn't you stay as leader with your convictions so strong and plough through and not resign? You should have stayed there for 17 years. You did the easy job. Now it's a hard job. Getting out the common market is a real job, a hell of a job, and you should be there pushing us through, not stabbing everyone in the back. That's my views.
Anthony, I'm not stabbing people in the back. I've actually said some nice things about the Prime Minister today. I mean, it's pretty unusual for me to do that. And can I just say to you, Anthony, that I haven't completely walked away. I am still leading a group in the European Parliament, and once Article 50 is triggered, I will be part of that negotiating process. And I promise you this, Anthony, if at the end of all of this, the House of Commons waters it down, or the House of Lords waters it down, or May, as Prime Minister, performs as badly on this fine speech as she did on her speeches on immigration, then I will be back in the front lines. I will never rest until we're properly out of this undemocratic, failing club. That is how strongly I feel about it. But thank you for your opinions as a staunch Remainer. Thank you. I wonder what Headley in Edgware makes of May's speech. Are you convinced, Headley? Is she going to do the business?
Well, I'm not convinced that she gave us anything on immigration, and it worried me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Need EU immigrants here. They look after a lot of our health service. They look after a lot of our public transport system. They even pick our fruit and our food, some of them. And I want to know how you, Nigel, would actually control EU immigration.
I wonder, Headley, before Poland joined the European Union in 2004, I mean, did the cabbages just rot in the fields of Lincolnshire? Was it impossible to get served a cup of coffee in London? Were the hospitals all completely unmanned? I mean, I find these arguments extraordinary. Now, that is not to say, Headley, that there aren't a lot of very good people who have come from Eastern Europe, from the Baltic states, who've done a lot of very hard-working jobs. Of course that's right. How are we going to do this? Well, what the Prime Minister has said, and if we take her at her word, is that we will have a work permit system for people to come and work in this country if we need the skills or labour that they're prepared to bring, but they won't get social entitlements, and that we'll do that not just based on whether they're from the European Union, but we will not discriminate against New Zealanders in favour of Bulgarians. We will do it on a global basis, on ability, on their record, and what they can bring. So I think, Headley, again, will fine words lead to action and delivery, but if the Prime Minister puts in place what she's promised, I think actually it'll be a lot better and a lot fairer than the current system, don't you?
Well, my worry is then if somebody with real talent comes here on a work permit, does that mean we have to throw them out at the end?
Well, Headley, if you get a job in New York, and it's a 2-year work permit, at the end of that 2 years you have to leave. unless, of course, the firm applies for an extension. And if you've been there for 5 years and paid your taxes and obeyed the law, then you might consider going for citizenship. That's pretty much how it works. But certainly, when it comes to you might call, say, casual labour, manual labour. Yes, these would be time-dependent, possibly even seasonal, where people came for 6 months a year or whatever it was. I think, Headley, I'm trying to put some faith in the Prime Minister, but if she does it that way, it'll be better, fairer, and it will also perhaps repair our relationship with the Commonwealth, where many people are saying, why are you being so unfair to us? We're your real friends in the world, and we want to be friends with everybody, but I think we're heading towards a better, fairer system. I hope so. I believe so. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 6:45. Let's get the latest news headlines with Rupert Bartier.
Labour is accusing the Prime Minister of blackmailing the European Union after she set out plans to leave the single market as part of Brexit. Theresa May also says she won't accept free movement of people in exchange for free trade. And there are reports that 50 people have been killed after a Nigerian fighter jet mistakenly bombed a refugee camp in the country. This is LBC.
LBC Travel, good evening, I'm Jay Louise. Knight, and in West London, solid queues westbound on the A4 from North End Road all the way onto the elevated section of the M4 because a car's broken down. An accident on the M25 in Essex is blocking one lane and causing queues clockwise between 28 and 29. That's the A12 down to the A127. Now, huge delays around East London this evening. The A13 remains down to one lane eastbound after Ferry Lane at Raynham for emergency repairs. Delays of an hour there, and because of that, the northbound A12 is queuing from the Lee Interchange to Redbridge. The M6 in the West Midlands is slow northbound to a broken down lorry after Wednesbury at 9. The A66 in Cumbria is blocked westbound because another lorry is broken down after the Crackenthorpe Junction. And in South Ayrshire, a serious accident's closed the A78 southbound from Meadowhead to the Moncton roundabout at the A79. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
The LBC Podcast app.
Download the LBC Podcast app and access all your favourite LBC shows and presenters.
People are finding it more difficult to recruit GPs. 15 years ago, you'd have had 40, 50 applicants. You're now struggling to get one.
Anytime.
And that's the thing about 0 hours contracts, isn't it? You're never off because you're always looking for the next work you can do.
Any place.
If you get a constituency of people, in this case a country of 60 million people, and you go, pick a side, pick a side, pick a side, what do you expect other than a divided country?
The LBC Podcast app. For all the details, go to lbc.co.uk.
At Travel Pack, we're a preferred partner for British Airways, which means you can discover the wilds of Africa, the Canadian Rockies, shop in Dubai, explore the Far East and India, or take a road trip across the USA, all with great prices. For flights and tailor-made holidays at amazing prices, call Travel Pack today on 0208 903 9999 or visit travelpack.com. Travel Pack, a preferred partner for British Airways. At all protected.
JustATrader.com. Washing machine on the blink? No problem. Just shower your clothes on. Job done. And you'll smell like coconut cream. Or get yourself on TrustedTrader.com and find the right person to do the job for you. Pop in your postcode and the trade you need, then you can choose from loads of tried and tested tradespeople in your area. Reviewed, reputable, right good tradespeople. Visit TrustedTrader.com. JustATrader.com.
Before I did my tax return, I was so wound up I forgot all about the smaller things in life. But now it's done. I'm so relaxed I can spend hours just staring at a cornflake.
You too can find inner peace. Do your tax return online by the 31st of January and avoid a £100 penalty. Go to gov.uk/self-assessment and don't forget to pay what you owe.
Lanyap. It's a Cajun word. When you buy 6 apples, then discover they've given you 7, lanyap. Crayon Financial. Like all good mortgage brokers, search the market for the most competitive mortgage and remortgage deals. But if you buy through us, we'll write your will for free. Lanyap. For expert advice, call Crayon Financial Services on 0208 572 4455. That's 0208 572 4455. Your home may be repossessed if you don't keep up with your repayments. Visit crayonfs.com.
This March, give a little bit of your time to join thousands of other collectors across the UK and make this year's Great Daffodil
Daffodil Appeal the biggest one yet. Raising money for Marie Curie nurses means they can go on giving their time and their care to people with a terminal illness. Every daffodil counts, so give a little bit of your time and get out and about for Marie Curie this March. We'll send you everything you need to make your collection a big success. Search Marie Curie online or text COLLECT to 70111. Text costs one message at your standard network rate.
At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% real hardwood. And it's also 50% off. But most importantly, it's 100% real hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also 50% off. At Oak Furnitureland, quality and price are both important. So make sure you don't miss our winter sale, where everything's 100% real hardwood with up to 50% off. Our biggest ever winter sale is now on. Visit oakfurnitureland.co.uk to find your nearest store.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Theresa May is very good at giving speeches, of that there's no doubt, and today's was a good speech with much new material. Clarity, we're not staying part of the single market. Hooray, I say. We'll walk away if it's a rotten deal. Great. You know, many things that she said today are good, but has she done enough to convince you? Or is her track record, given that she was Home Secretary of 6 years and totally failed to reduce immigration or tackle radical Islam, is her track record just too awful? And is this just another speech from a career politician to reassure us all that will not actually get delivered and will take forever and will cost a fortune? To get involved, call me on 0345 6060 973. You can tweet me on @LBC with the hashtag Farage on LBC, and you can watch the show on Facebook Live, as more and more people are doing. Go to lbc.co.uk or LBC's Facebook page now, and lots of texts and tweets coming in. I like this one. Nigel, even sterling is rising now. They've got nothing left to moan about. Nigel, get real. Do you honestly believe what she said? Mass immigration will never be controlled. She's a lying politician. You are so naive. Oh, well, I've been called a few things over the years. I can live with that. Nigel, what are your thoughts on Nicola Sturgeon calling another Scottish referendum? She'd lose it by a whopping margin. It ain't going to happen. Do you know, Nigel, that the reason the economy hasn't fallen off a cliff is because we're still in Europe? We're not leaving Europe, matey. We never were going to leave Europe, and the Prime Minister said that today very clearly, a point that I've made for nearly 25 years. We love Europe. We love the European people. We love the different countries. We like the cheeses. We like the wines. We like the people. We love Europe. We hate this attempt to force everybody in Europe together inside this Brussels straitjacket with a false identity, a flag, an anthem, an army and a police force that virtually no one wants. Hopefully, we are the country that is going to reshape a brand new Europe, a Europe of sovereign nation states who trade together, are friends together, good neighbours with each other. That's the kind of Europe I want to be a part of. Edward in Cannock, has she convinced you? Is she going to do the business?
Hi, Nigel. I was greatly encouraged. I think that she set out a good vision, but I've got a major concern, and that is when I look across the pond at Trump, when he's got a terrific team of businessmen around him.
Yes.
And I look at the EU, and they've got very experienced negotiators. And then I look at Theresa May and the people around her. Have we got the right sort of people who've got the drive, who've got the commitment, who understand business, and who can do a trade deal in a timely fashion, but also, you know, insist and barter and get the best possible deal? Because we just seem to have career politicians. They won't let you anywhere near them, which is a disgrace, I think, because I think you should be there. But do you think we've got the right people to drive these
Well, it's very interesting, Edward. One of the arguments that was put by the Remain camp in the referendum was we must stay part of the European Union because if we were outside of it and free to negotiate our own trade deals, we haven't got the expertise. Goodness gracious me. I mean, it's such a desperate, negative approach to this. Now, Edward, I do think you've got a point that because for 40 years we've not been doing this stuff, we may well have a bit of a skills gap. So what we do, Edward, is very simple. Think if we were a commercial company and we didn't have the skill set to go into the new market. Well, what we'd do is we'd poach people, wouldn't we? We'd find people in other companies who can do this. So I was making the point just a couple of days ago here on this show that you don't need to be a big country to negotiate trade deals. And I talked about Singapore. I talked about South Korea. I talked about Switzerland. I talked about Chile. And those 4 countries have got trade deals that are way bigger collectively, each 4 of them, not together, each of them, than the European Union has managed to do on its own. So, Edward, the answer is we need people with belief. We need people with a positive mental attitude. We need people who don't go for this counsel of despair that it takes 7 years or 10 years to negotiate trade deals. And we're going to be working, with some Americans who've got a serious can-do attitude and are prepared to work 24/7, and I get that. So, Edward, if we genuinely, at this moment in time, do not have within Whitehall people who are good enough to do this, the first thing you do is you get in some business people who are used to doing deals, who are used to looking at detail, and the second thing you do is you poach. And let's poach some people from Singapore to help us. How about that as an answer?
I think I agree completely. I think we need the self-belief, and we can do it. There's no doubt that we can do it. But Theresa May seems to be a very cautious person. She doesn't seem to be the sort of person who's been involved in the cut and thrust of business. And I can just see her being sort of very, very cautious about everything.
Do you think, Edward, she was forced into making this speech today by the media, by all the criticism?
No, I don't. Well, yes and no. I think she had to come out and say what the vision was. Mm-hmm. She had to say something, and I think she said some really good things. But she's a great person for giving speeches.
I know.
We need to follow it up, and it needs to be followed up, promptly to show that it isn't just a speech.
Edward, the key to all of this, and I'm going to discuss after the news at 7. I'm going to talk about trade deals. I'm going to talk about America. I'm going to talk about speed and what we do, what the risks are, what the upsides are. But Edward, the absolute key to all of this is believing in Britain, believing in ourselves, believing in our people, believing we're good enough to do what we can and shape our own future in the world. I certainly do. I think you do as well. I wonder what Mark in Aldershot thinks. Mark, has she convinced you?
Not at all, Nigel. And I just want to ask a question of you.
Go on.
Given the disinformation that was pumped out by both sides in the referendum, do you feel that the vote was a true reflection of what was really a highly complex question?
No, I think had it been put in much simpler terms to people, that this was simply about being a self-governing nation or not, I think the majority to leave would have been much higher.
You think it'd be much higher?
Yeah, I'm teasing you a bit, Mark. But I know, I mean, but if you think of it in those terms, do you wish to govern yourself? Do you want to be an independent nation? Do you want to be free to make your own friendships in the world? Looked at like that, most people, of course, would say yes. What we were told, though, was that economically we couldn't survive, without being run by Juncker and his sort of merry gang. But, Mark, it's over now. It's over. The question is, where do we go from here? Can we make a success of it? And is this Prime Minister, has this speech today, is it the game changer, or is this a career politician trying to make us feel good about things who probably won't deliver? That's really the question, I think.
It's a career politician saying what she wants to say to remain in office.
Well,
I mean,
that's that is a very cynical interpretation. But she did say some new things today. I'm trying to be fair to her. She did give some clarity, at least on a single market, didn't she?
Well, she can say a lot of things. Her actions will is more than words, isn't it? So let's see what she comes out with. But I don't see we've got any bargaining chips, really.
Well, I think we've got plenty of bargaining chips, and the biggest bargaining chip we've got is they sell us an awful lot more than we sell them, and I think that's absolutely crucial. And I'm going to take the last call in this hour. David in Falmouth, has she convinced you?
Hello, Nigel.
Hi.
Good to speak to you. No, she hasn't, but I do agree with you that we have a lot of good bargaining chips.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think in her speech today, Theresa May has not only revealed, but she's sort of given away 3 of the best cards that we had in our hand.
Go on.
She said that regardless of the deal that the European Union offers us, that she'll share the British intelligence service with the European Union, which is one of the best in the world, if not the best. She'll maintain British troops in the Baltic states. And she said that she'll support the European project. She said, we want to see a strong Europe. I think that the British government...
Yeah, she maybe's given a bit too much away there, David, and I get that point. But actually, the European Union is falling apart anyway. Don't worry. So, has Theresa May got it right? She said we can't remain in a single market. Are we going to do future trade deals? Are we going to crack on with America? Are we going to wait? What are we going to do? Whatever side of the argument you're on, call me on 0345 6060 973. You can watch this on Facebook Live. Go to LBC's Facebook page now. Let's talk trade after the break.
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 7 o'clock. Labour is accusing the Prime Minister of trying to blackmail the European Union over Brexit. Theresa May has used a major speech to say the UK will be leaving the single market. But Jeremy Corbyn has told LBC Brussels won't allow the UK to pick and choose its own Brexit deal.
She seems to have an implied threat there. She says to the European Union, this is what we want, this is the deal we want. And by the way, if you don't give it to us, we're going to become a bargain basement economy. We're going to cut corporate taxation, slash public services and living standards with it.
Mrs May also says she won't accept free movement of people in exchange for free trade. She says she has an open mind over staying in the customs union. Speaking during his nightly show here on LBC, Nigel Farage welcomed most of the detail of today's speech, but says he does have concerns.
How long is all this going to take? We still have an open door to nearly 500 million people. I worry there was a bit of confusion over whether we'd stay part of the customs union. She said we may have to go on still paying contributions. She did not mention fishing once in her speech.
In other news, there are reports that 50 people have been killed after a Nigerian fighter jet mistakenly bombed a refugee camp in the country. It was on a mission against Boko Haram. And Vladimir Putin is accusing President Obama and his team of trying to undermine Donald Trump. The Russian president claims they've been spreading false allegations about him. The LBC Markets report. The FTSE 100 has ended the day down 106 at 72.20. The pound buys you $1.23 and €1.15. LBC weather. Cloudy in most areas into the evening, a low of 0 Celsius. Another overcast day tomorrow with some drizzle and a high of 10 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Rupert Bartia.
LBC Travel, good evening, I'm Jay Louise Knight. And in West London, the M4 is still partly blocked westbound on the elevated section. Just after junction to Brentford as a car's broken down, there are solid queues back onto the A4 and to North End Road at Hammersmith. M25 in Essex is slow clockwise towards an accident just before 29 at the A127. Back of the queues reaching junction 28 for the A12. Now, we've had big problems all afternoon in East London on the A13. It is still down to just one lane eastbound after Ferry Lane at Rainham for emergency repairs. There are queues back to Canary Wharf. It means the northbound A12 is slow from Hackney Wick to Redbridge, and the North Circular is slow southbound from the Ilford flyover. The M56 in Greater Manchester is queuing west towards a broken down vehicle at Bowden at 7, and in South Ayrshire an accident shut the A78 southbound at Meadowhead. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald. Well, we're leaving the single market. Now, they're very good at finding terms that sound innocuous and that sound great. In fact, my mum and dad were taken in over 40 years ago by the term common market. Soft, cuddly, lovely, about trade and jobs, make us all richer, and they've tried, of course, with the single market to make us feel the same thing. The reason we're leaving the single market is that as members of it, we do not make the rules and regulations by which our commercial economy exists. Everything from the local corner shop to a giant, chemical plant or a bank in Canary Wharf. So that's the point about the single market, is you give away the ability to make your own laws. You also give away, over your entire commercial life, the ultimate decisions to the European Court of Justice, based in Luxembourg, or when you have to pay a membership fee to be part of this thing, which is currently running at £30 million every single day. Oh, and I almost forgot. As a member of it, you're not allowed to make your own trade deals with any other part of the world. So there are lots of good reasons for leaving the single market. And I've been getting really angry when I hear Cleggers and I hear Farron and I hear, Mandelson and all these people telling us we didn't vote in the referendum to leave the single market. Oh, yes, we did. It was clear. Every single leading Remainer and Leaver said a vote to leave is a vote to leave the single market. So I am pleased. But there'll be many that tell us there is a terrible threat with this. What are we going to replace it with? And the thing that really, I suppose, made me happiest today of all was hearing Theresa May using the phrase, we're going to go global, because it's the argument that I've been making forever. We can do trade with the European Union, but we've got to start thinking about being free to work with the rest of the world. Many of them, of course, coincidentally, Commonwealth countries who are enjoying growth rates far higher than anything we see in Europe. So the question is, are you fearful of life outside the single market? Would you be fearful if we had to walk away from these negotiations and just have WTO rules? And do you think this government has got the confidence to say to Trump, when he offers this trade deal, do you know what? We're going to ignore the European Commission. Remember, we talked yesterday about the fact that European commissioners are lining up saying, oh, no. You can't start to negotiate your own trade deals until we've left. So my question to you is, are you pleased that we're going to leave the single market? Or are you one of those people, perhaps you were a Remainer, who's really worried about what that means? And I'm quite prepared, and over the course of this next hour, to talk to you about what the upsides and the downsides of that are. And I will do it as objectively as I possibly can. No, honestly. So to get involved in this, to talk about the single market, the risks or the upsides of leaving it, and what Britain's place in the world should be, please call me on 0345 6060 973. You can tweet me on @LBC with the hashtag Farage and LBC. And you can watch the show live on Facebook. Go to lbc.co.uk or to LBC's Facebook page now. Peter in Derby, are you pleased we're leaving the single market?
I would be very happy if we were, but I don't think we have any reason to believe her. Based on Theresa May's track record, I don't think a heart's in it. I think it's a tactic to threaten the EU into thinking that we will go the whole hog and actually go over hard Brexit, but much like an angry parent threatening to take away their child's Christmas presents, I don't think she really means it. But you and a lot of other people seem to believe that she's actually going to do it. I have no idea why.
Well, Peter, I welcome her words because, this time last week there was huge confusion as to where the Prime Minister stood on the single market. I mean, she today, and even the Chancellor in the House of Commons today, couldn't have been clearer. Surely, Peter, that's a step in the right direction.
Well, it would be nice if it was going to happen. But if you believe on judging someone by their actions and not their words, then there's no reason you would believe that we would go through with it. Even if we did regain some control of EU immigration, let's say we actually did go through with it, then there's no reason to believe that she'd take advantage of that power because, as you well know, as the Home Secretary, she oversaw a huge increase of non-EU migration, something which she did have control over.
Peter, I am with you on her abysmal track record. Very good at giving speeches and very bad at delivering. I get that. But I tell you something. By saying today as the British Prime Minister, I will negotiate a deal or I will walk away from a deal, but I'm guaranteeing you, effectively, we're leaving the single market, we're getting back complete control of our borders. She has raised expectations to such a level that if she did not deliver on this, there would be a terrible electoral outcome for her. I personally think that she was rather pushed into this speech today. Very interesting. There was a opinion study out this morning that showed that at the start of 2016, 36% of people in this country had confidence in this government. At the end of 2016, that had fallen to 26%. Only a quarter of the country have confidence in this government. So what had happened is many millions of people who'd voted, the Tories in 2015, and many of those had voted for Brexit, were by the end of last year thinking, she isn't going to do this. You know, it's been 6-7 months since the referendum and nothing's happening. So, Peter, I do agree slightly with your cynicism. She was pushed into doing this. She had to throw some red meat, you know, to her own party and to Brexit voters. She had to do her best to try and sort of keep UKIP at bay as much as she possibly can. I get all of that, but I do think, Peter, having said these things, she's raised expectations to such a level that if she couldn't deliver them, goodness me, her own position, I think, would be, seriously under threat come 2019. Peter, thank you for your call. I do understand your complete lack of confidence in career politics. I get it. I do share a lot of it. I wonder what Jason in Wolverhampton thinks. Jason, good evening.
Good evening. Hello again, Nigel. I want to ask you something clear on the single market.
Yes.
I am right in assuming that even if we leave the single market, we can still retain access to it, can we not?
Jason, this word access, was used and abused during the referendum campaign and has been since. Let us be clear. Every country in the world has access to the single market. Every single one. The question is on what terms? Now, countries like China, countries like America, countries like Russia, Russia's a bad example with sanctions, but let's take China and America for now. They do a lot of business with the European Union without any trade deal being in place at all, which means they operate under World Trade Organization rules, which means there are tariffs. On most manufactured goods, Jason, those tariffs average about 2% of the price of a product. Actually, the tariffs are less than the currency shift risk, which takes place every single week. The highest tariffs on manufacturers tend to be on motor cars. So, for example, my father drives a Japanese motor car. That Japanese motor car was 10% more expensive because the European Union charges a 10% tariff on that car. Had my father bought the car in Switzerland, well, they have a free trade deal. He could have got it cheaper. But anyway, there we are. That's another question. So Jason, we can all trade with each other, regardless whether we're members of a single market or not.
Absolutely. And obviously, being in the EU, the four things you basically have to agree with is like being able to, for free movement for goods, services, capital, and people. And what I think that that Theresa May is misunderestimating is the fact that the free movement of people is exactly what is like putting a dent in a lot of our own infrastructure, like the NHS, for example.
Yes, and I mean, in many ways, Jason, that's what we voted on. But be clear, not being a member of the single market, we still have access to it. Exactly. The question is on what terms, and I will delve deeper into that, as this hour develops. Jason, thank you. Texts and tweets. A text here, Theresa May could be the new Maggie Thatcher. Maybe the EU diehards and the fake news and mainstream media organisations will start to get behind Britain instead of causing the divide themselves. Sir, the Brexit deal, both houses vote on. If they reject it, do we default to non-unique status and leave anyway? Well, that would be up to the government. I mean, frankly, if the House of Commons was to stop any deal, there would be a general election on the subject, and I think there would be considerable anger. And it's very interesting, I mean, this single market. So there's a fellow called Guy Verhofstadt. He was the Prime Minister of Belgium for many years. He leads the Liberal group in the European Parliament, and any of you that follow European politics will know he is a fanatical Euro-federalist. He wants the European army completed. He wants basically member states of the Union to be nothing more than satellites of the Brussels machine. And he says, today, Britain has chosen a hard Brexit. May's clarity is welcome. The days of the United Kingdom cherry-picking Europe and being a la carte are over. Yeah, OK. He says, threatening to turn the UK into a deregulated tax haven will hurt British people and is a counterproductive negotiating tactic. Now, do you see their mentality? Their mentality is they believe in the single market so much, they believe that everyone's tax rate should be the same, they believe that everyone's level of regulation should be the same. They don't believe in competition. Verhofstadt thinks Britain outside, having low taxes, having more competitive regulations, he thinks that's a disaster. I think it's wonderful. It'll mean money flooding into this country in even bigger volumes than it already is. It'll mean more jobs for British people. It'll mean more tax receipts. I believe in competition. I believe when the state intervenes and makes everything the same, effectively, it gets that competitive edge out of the marketplace, it makes things more expensive, and it gives people less choice. And that's why I am thrilled that we're coming out of the single market. And I'm asking you, are you pleased she said we're coming out of the single market, or are you worried about what those costs may be? Peter from Spain, what do you think of her speech?
Oh, hello, Nigel. It's a privilege to speak to you again. You and I have met on more than one occasion in St Margaret's in Dover and the Churchill in Dover.
OK, very good.
I am overjoyed that we come out the single market.
Yep.
I was originally a Labour politician, and then I went to work on the border in the United Kingdom border. And I'll tell you a story about two builders. There was a builder who had got several convictions, who I had to wade through, and a builder who I was required to question. The one who I was required to question was an Australian citizen.
Yeah.
He ran one of the UK's largest house building companies at the time. The other guy was a European Union citizen. We have turned our back on the Commonwealth.
Yes.
Appallingly.
Yes.
These are the countries that in our darkest hour in 1940, we didn't stand alone. We stood with Canada and South Africa and Australia and New Zealand and India. And we stood with all these countries, and we've turned our back on them, and it's absolutely disgraceful.
Peter, we haven't just turned our backs on them, we've betrayed them. That's what we've done.
You're right.
We've betrayed our friends in the Commonwealth all over the world, and we've now got the chance to press the reset button. We can be friendly with our European neighbours, but let's re-engage with those people who mean so very much to so many people in this country. Peter from Spain, thank you for your call. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively here on LBC. It's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Paul Nuttall, leader of UKIP. Mrs Merkel clearly rattled by what Donald Trump said yesterday. Is she right to be that rattled?
We're talking here about a German Chancellor who has committed a cardinal error when she opened up her borders, and who knows who these people are.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
This is a live update for UK businesses. Right now, the world wants the UK's goods and services. Our reputation for quality and innovation means there are buyers around the world wanting to work with your business. The demand is out there. You should be too. Search Exporting is Great.
Right, your car's all ready. Great. Who's that sticking out of the engine?
Oh, yes, Simon. He's just giving our thorough last check. He does get stuck in.
Yeah.
Right, grab a leg.
Oh, OK.
Come on, Simon.
We know every Nissan back to front. So for total peace of mind, visit Nissan's used car event from the 27th of December to the 22nd of January. Get a deposit contribution of £500 or even £1,000 on X-Trail, plus 2 years servicing on selected nearly new vehicles bought with Nissan Finance. 9.9% APR representative, subject to status and over 18s. Participating dealers. T's and C's apply. See nissanusedcars.co.uk. Google Nissan Cared For to find your nearest dealer.
Well Man and Well Woman are the leading multivitamins for men and for women. Comprehensive formulas with vitamins B6 and B12 to support normal energy release. Live life well. Well Man and Well Woman from Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company. From Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com.
The Emirates Global Sale is on. Explore, reconnect, discover, marvel, learn, relax. This is your chance to make 2017 a year to remember. Take advantage of exceptional fares to multiple destinations across the world, starting from £299. Book by the 31st of January for travel from the 7th of February until the 30th of June 2017. Visit emirates.com/UK for details. Conditions and booking fee may apply.
Divorce. It threatens the things you've worked hard for in more ways than you can imagine. Your home, savings, pension, and most of all, your relationship with your children. Don't let divorce cost you any more than it has to. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordellcordell.co.uk. Office in central London. A partner men can count on.
Don't miss the Nissan used car event. On until the 22nd of January at all 14 Glyn Hopkin dealerships. Search Glyn Hopkin Nissan.
I'm Tom. I'm in year 11. I was always getting told off for talking, so I thought about the debating team. Now I'm thinking about university.
I put the debating team flyer on his desk. Was sick of telling him to pipe down. I wanted to put his voice to better use. Now he's thinking about university. I teach year 11. I'm Mr. Corbett.
Apply now and you could get a £25,000 tax-free training bursary to teach subjects like maths and languages. Search Get Into Teaching. Subject to eligibility. Selected subjects only.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
So the mystery over the single market is over. The Prime Minister has said we are leaving the single market, and Nick Clegg is crying in his beer, and I'm a very happy bunny because that is what we voted for. But I know some of you have got real concerns because you've been told for years that because of the single market we do more business and we're all better off. And I'm very, very keen to answer any question you've got or any observations that you've got yourselves about the single market. And I will, perhaps after the next break, tell you what the worst case scenario is, which I don't think actually is that bad compared to where we are now. But I'm going next to James in Hertford. James, the single market, myth, or are we better off out of it?
I think we're better off out of it, Nigel. I think it gives us a great opportunity to do more trade with the rest of the world. I export a lot of products into Europe currently, but equally we sell a lot of products to countries outside of Europe. And it doesn't make a great deal of difference where they go, because ultimately we produce a product that people want to buy. And that is the same for many brands from companies not in the European Union, based in China or based in the US, who sell all over the world for the same reasons.
Yes, politicians, James, politicians do not understand how business takes place. They think governments create business. Actually, when I worked in business, as far as we were concerned, the customer was king. The customer buys a product because he believes it's the right price and he or she trusts the quality. What do you sell, James?
It's an indoor sporting product. I wouldn't want to go into too many specifics, but it's sport-based, which this country does very well at.
Yes.
And it's an indoor sport that's very, very popular in the UK and in other parts of the world, particularly in Commonwealth countries.
Good. So you're doing business, you're exporting all over the world. That's marvellous, and you don't fear us leaving the single market one little bit. In fact, it could make your life easier with global trade. Is that right?
It would create a lot of opportunity, particularly in America, especially where, clothing, for example, there's huge tariffs selling to the US. We've got some fantastic fashion brands in this country, which could do very well there.
In fact, I'm told by exporters that America is one of the most difficult markets in the world to get our products into in terms of red tape, in terms of cost. So you presumably were very, very cheered by Trump's offer, basically, of a free trade deal.
Yeah, I think so. I think it very much depends on the detail of it, but on the whole, yeah, it's very promising, and I hope that other, leaders around the world see the opportunity to do better business with Britain, particularly Australia and New Zealand and Canada, and jump on the bandwagon.
James, thank you. You're wonderful. Are you listening, Mr. Clegg, Mr. Farron? This bloke actually has got a real job. Yeah, that's right. He took risk. He designed something. He employs people. He sells it. He doesn't want your ludicrous, over-regulated single market. He, James, is going global and showing us how it can be done. Your Facebook messages coming in. Justin Hughes says, if you want to sort this country out, then leaving is the only way, and the Remainers will realise that. Justin, they are beginning to realise that, I think, apart from those, of course, in Parliament. Alan Sun says, we're getting our country back. It's a good job, but we cannot wait to get out. Goodbye, EU. He says a rude word about the EU. Have a good day, ha. Well, Alan, I tell you something. Actually, this is not two fingers up to the other European countries or to the European peoples. But I do think, at the right moment, a two fingers up to the European Commission, just as we're leaving, would be a rather happy thing to do. But this is not about Europe. It's not about the countries of Europe. It's not about the peoples of Europe, because we love them. Jason Andrews says, being in the EU is like having someone you don't know choose your GCSEs for you, regardless whether you like it or not. Your whole future gets decided by someone else. Jason, that was the argument I was having with that passionate Romania earlier. Ultimately, we voted to take back control of our own destiny. Our Prime Minister today has told us we're going to get it, and it sounds great, and she said some new things. The trouble is, the track record isn't very pretty. I wonder what Theresa in Bank has to say on this subject. Single market, Theresa, are you pleased we're leaving?
Well, not so much, because you have American banks, you got Australian banks, you got Japanese banks who've set up base in UK, and they use us as a platform to trade with the whole of the EU. And also you have the euro clearing bonds, which Europe has said cannot stay in London once we've left the EU. They have an argument on their side.
So,
what do you think is going to happen to...
Theresa, tell me, how much of the city's business is done with the European Union?
Well, we've got about 550 trillion a year in terms of bond clearing.
As a percentage of what the City of London does with the domestic market and the global market, what percentage of what the city does is with our next-door neighbours in Europe?
I'm in the back office, so I won't have that much details on the front office.
Okay.
But what we've heard is, say, Jamie Dimon has said he's going to move about 1,000 staff.
Where's he going to move them? Where's he going to move them? Paris and pay super taxes, Frankfurt, which no one likes. I mean, Theresa, they are making these threats because it has suited many of the big banks, particularly Goldman Sachs, you know, who have managed to get people in Italy and in Greece appointed prime ministers who were former directors of theirs. It suited the big people because they've been able to write the rules, OK, for their own industry. And I know there are proposed threats as to whether we can clear euro products, but Theresa, I'm a bit older than you, and I remember, you know, at the turn of the century being told that if we didn't join the euro, the City of London would collapse, it would lose all of its business. It didn't happen. Thank God we didn't join the euro. Now, Theresa, you know, we will have equivalence of standards in terms of doing business with Europe. But the important thing, Theresa, is this. We now have a chance in your industry to lift some of the excessive burdens and to make London an even more attractive place to do business for people from all over the world. And I do think, Theresa, that actually in the last week we began to hear some different arguments. You know, the European Commissioner, Mr. Barnier, who is their big negotiator on behalf of the Commission, he said a bad deal could hurt European banks more than it could hurt us. So I think we're beginning, Theresa, to get some common sense, and I hope so for you and for your job and for your colleagues, but I think we're beginning to hear that argument. I go next to Linda in Trafford. Linda, good evening. What do you think about us leaving the single market?
Well, I'm not very pleased about it, and I was just wondering whether you'd actually received a phone call from the President of the Republic of Ireland to thank you for the jobs that are going to actually go to Ireland now. I just think it's a big mistake. And we had literally 5 countries in the referendum, and practically nearly 3.5 countries voted to remain, and just over 1.5 voted to leave. So, well,
we are a United Kingdom, Linda. We are a United Kingdom.
Well, yes, but just because England have the biggest population, it isn't fair on the other countries who voted to remain, and 3.5 of them, don't forget.
Well, hang on.
What happened to Gibraltar?
Whoa. Wales voted very clearly to leave, didn't it?
Yeah, but Northern Ireland voted to remain, Scotland voted to remain, Gibraltar voted to remain, and nearly half of England voted to remain.
Well, Kensington voted to remain. Are you suggesting that we break up on the basis? Linda, we're a United Kingdom. We had a referendum.
We're not a United Kingdom anymore, though. That's the problem.
Well, of course we are.
Scotland, we're not.
Of course we are.
Nearly half of England voted to remain. And I just think it's a big mistake.
Look, for the last 100 years, Scotland returned lots of Labour MPs and Southern England returned lots of Conservative MPs. But we were still a United Kingdom, and whether we had a Labour government or a Tory government, that is what people accepted, living in a nation-state, living in a democracy. But your comments about Ireland are fascinating. So we're always given this impression that Ireland love the European Union, think it's wonderful. Linda, twice in the last 16 years, the Irish people have rejected European treaties only to be forced and bullied in second referendums to vote against what they thought the first time round. And Ireland's done well It's done well having a competitive, lower corporate tax base.
And we've done well out of the European Union as well, because when we joined the common market, when I vote, I mean, I'm 65 now, so I voted for the common market. And in the 70s, I remember the 70s, obviously, the economy was tanking. It was horrible. We have 3-day weeks.
Yeah, sure.
Electricity cuts. And since we've been in the common market and now the European Union, the economy's doing brilliant. And I think Theresa May has put in immigration above the economy, which is the wrong thing for a government to do. The government should put the economy first.
Linda,
but I do have an alternative for the City of London. Because
immigration mattered to people in this referendum.
And turn it into a huge garden city, because I think that's what it will end up. I think a lot of the financial services will actually move to Dublin now if we come out of the single market.
I don't think they will. Some of them have moved already. But what we're going to do outside the European Union is we're going to get super competitive. We're told it would be awful by Mr Verhofstadt and Mr Corbyn if we had a low-tax economy. I think it'd be terrific. It'd create more jobs, more growth. I'd love it. Your texts and tweets coming in. Hi, Nigel. I'm over the moon. Wait and see. The EU will collapse. I give it a couple of years. Other European countries will break away. The peoples of Europe are beginning to see the light. Farron and Clegg, I don't trust them. Anne in Blackburn. I understand that. Nigel, why wasn't Theresa May clear that creating a global Britain meant leaving the customs union? You're quite right with that text. The one ambiguity economically was she said we're leaving the single market. She was unclear what we're going to do with the customs union. And equally, she did say, if we didn't get a proper deal, you know, there may have to be some interim arrangements. So yeah, I guess as with all these things, the contract looked great. The more you look at the small print, the more questions there are, not to mention the fact her track record on delivering what she says is simply abysmal. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively here on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Rupert Bartier.
Labour is accusing the Prime Minister of trying to blackmail the European Union over Brexit. Theresa May has used a major speech to say the UK will be leaving the single market. And speaking during his nightly show here on LBC, Nigel Farage says it's good news.
Now that the Prime Minister has made it clear that we're not going to negotiate free movement of people, we've made our minds up. We don't want to be part of a single market. We simply want to talk about trade and tariffs and a new relationship based around that. Hopefully, what we're going to see is a bit of common sense.
MPs will have the final say over the Brexit deal with a binding vote. And there are reports that 50 people have been killed after a Nigerian fighter jet mistakenly bombed a refugee camp in the country. It was on a mission against Boko Haram fighters. LBC weather. Cloudy in most areas into the evening, a low of 0 Celsius. Another overcast day tomorrow with some drizzle, a high of 10 degrees.
LBC Travel, good evening. I'm Andy Lake. Well, the A13 has severe delays heading out of London for nearly 10 miles from the Canning Town flyover to the Wellington interchange, where there's still only one lane open because of ongoing emergency repairs. As a result, also long queues through Dagenham and Rainham. The A12 is very slow northbound between the Lee interchange and the Redbridge roundabout, and the North Circular is crawling coming both ways between Ilford and the A13 at Beckton. Bexley High Street is queuing on both approaches to the temporary lights near Vicarage Road. Delays there along Bourne Road and on North Cray Road. The A4 is queuing if you're heading out of London from North End Road in West Kensington onto the elevated section of the M4, where a car's broken down just after junction 2 for Brentford. In Berkshire, the M4 is hardly moving westbound from Maidenhead all the way to Reading after a collision earlier on the A329M just north of Wokingham. That's the M4 junction 10. It's still looking absolutely horrible on both the M4 and the A329M. And in Kent, the A2 is closed westbound after an accident just north of Dover between Coldred Hill and Liddon Hill. As for the rail, South West trains have delays still of around half an hour via Wimbledon after a train broke down earlier. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
LBC. I want my wife to be protected. We were just talking about a family holiday and bam! Before I knew it, she's booked it all. The flights, rental car, hotel, and even a helicopter ride, which I've always wanted. She finds these fantastic deals online, but the last thing we need is our bank details falling into the wrong hands.
Join 400 million users of our technology and protect your finances with Kaspersky Internet Security. Awarded Which Best Buy for PC 3 years in a row. Learn more at kaspersky.co.uk.
So, what can you do in your lunch hour? Eat your lunch, obviously. Do a bit of social networking. Text your partner asking what should we have for tea. Or you could sell your car. Yep, selling your car with WeBuyAnyCar.com is so quick, the average drive time to a branch is less than 15 minutes. You could have sold your car before everyone else has made it back to their desks. Quick, enter your reg number now at WeBuyAnyCar.com. Admin fee may apply. For more information, see WeBuyAnyCar.com/info.
The Emirates Global Sale is on. Explore, reconnect, discover, marvel, learn, relax. This is your chance to make 2017 a year to remember. Take advantage of exceptional fares to multiple destinations across the world, starting from £299. Book by the 31st of January for travel from the 7th of February until the 30th of June 2017. Visit emirates.com/UK for details. Conditions and booking fee may apply.
Believe. Believe in yourself, in your talents, your powers, your abilities. Believe you can step up, juggle life with study. Keep going. Believe you can do it. Tell yourself it is possible and know that you will succeed. 79% of the Open University students we asked said the OU will help them fulfill their career goals. We can help you with yours too, if you believe. Search OU Dream to get started with the Open University.
I'm starting to remember I had another life.
A secret he never shared.
From the moment you came into our lives, you were all we could have hoped for.
A family he never forgot.
I have to find home.
A journey you'll always remember.
I have to find my family.
Nominated for 5 BAFTA awards.
Every day my mother screams my name.
Critics are calling Lion one of the best pictures of the year.
You're a beautiful boy.
Lion, in cinemas January 20.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
So Mrs May went and did it. She said, we're leaving the single market, and cleared up all the ambiguity. And I am making the argument that is a good thing for us. And in a moment, I'll go through what the pros and cons of this may be. But first, breaking news. There is a poll out on Sky News tonight. And the question that was asked is, do you support the United Kingdom leaving the EU single market? 51% yes, 39% no, 10% don't know. Hooray. We're getting there. We're beginning to win. People are beginning to understand that the single market was about regulation. The single market was about losing political control. The single market was costing us a fortune. And the other question that has just been published on Sky News is do you trust Theresa May to get the best possible Brexit deal? 51% yes, 36% no, 14% don't know. So, you know, she is very good at this, because I remember as Home Secretary a speech at a Tory party conference of how she was going to drastically reduce immigration. And it appeared for a couple of weeks the whole country was behind her, but she didn't actually deliver. Anyway, we're getting your thoughts on the single market, on Theresa May. And remember, you can come onto this show. You haven't got to agree with me. If you want to have a pop, this is the place to be. I love this one. This text just come in. Nigel, you talk about your hatred of career politicians when you are one. You are so deluded. The ones who will have to live with the decision are the ones who voted against it. Ben, you're so sweet. You're so kind. I don't regard myself as a career politician at all. I came from business into politics for one big reason. That was getting back control of this country. Another one of your tweets says that this speech was full of Churchillian spirit. The country must now get behind her and stop bleating. The biggest risk to our future is those putting us down. That's Danny Berry. I have to say, I do rather agree with that. I wonder, Samir in Edgware, are you one of those who thinks leaving the single market is a good thing and we can now go global?
Definitely. I think it's one of the best things that have ever happened to the country in recent times. I am ecstatic today, and I really do hope Theresa May delivers.
Yeah, well, Samir, I think that's how I feel. I mean, so many of these things, so many of these phrases that I've used for years, been laughed at, been called an extremist for. Now the Prime Minister's saying it. I'm like you, Samir. I am delighted. I think we've made progress today, but I'm worried about the detail. I'm worried about her track record. I'm worried fishing wasn't even mentioned. And I also, Samir, what I don't know is, when Trump well, when Trump's team in a couple of weeks say, hey, guys, let's sit down and do a trade deal, what's she going to do?
Well, I hope she goes ahead and does it.
What happens? But Samir, what happens if Mr. Juncker rings her up? Mr. Juncker, downwind of a few, rings her up and says, no. The rules are clear. You're not allowed to negotiate trade deals until you've left the European Union.
Well, that's a call she's going to have to make. If I was her, I'd still go for it and say, look, practically, we've got to get on with it. Yeah. And that's the reason I've called you. Yep. One of your questions was, what's the downside?
Yes.
I guess people always think the WTO regulations will apply.
Yep.
Well, I'm thinking, why don't we use the blueprint of the Canadian agreement that was signed a few weeks ago? That will be the starting point. That surely the Canadians have got an agreement that's better than the WTO. We use that as the blueprint. Use TIPEX. Canada, put in the word UK. There, we're already better off than the World WTO organisation.
Samir, you're dead right. You're dead right. But can I just share with the wider audience? So what Samir's referring to, albeit it took a long time, but the European Union has just completed a trade deal with Canada. It's a good trade deal. It's quite a comprehensive trade deal, and it does not include the free movement of people, Samir, does it?
Absolutely. And they've got control of their own government and everything. They're not part of the single market, and they've got a deal better than the WTO. Let's adopt that as the blueprint.
So logic would suggest, Samir, wouldn't it, that if that's a deal with the European Union, albeit a slow one, but a deal they've got with Canada, surely they'd want the same thing with their biggest export market in the world, unless, of course, they're just trying to punish us. Because
provided they don't wish to punish us, there's no reason why we can't adopt the rules that Canada have as a starting point.
Actually, Samir, they're trying to double punish us at the moment, aren't they? For the one, they're saying, we're not going to do a proper trade deal with you. Oh, and by the way, whilst we're being beastly to you, we want to prevent you from making your own way in the world. It's not good enough. And I think, we have seen an assertive Prime Minister today. We've seen good rhetoric today. I actually think she's now got to go to Brussels and really explain to them we absolutely mean business. We are not going to be held up by these ridiculous politicians in Brussels. Samir, I'm pleased you're delighted, and we're now about to leave the European Union. We're going to a little country, a country that has managed to survive outside the European Union and is the richest country in Europe. We're going to James in Zurich. Good evening.
Good evening, Nigel.
So, has she done the right thing?
I think so. I feel very confident after today as well. I don't think she wants her memory of being a British Prime Minister to be one that let down the country after making such promises. So I'm feeling confident that it will happen now.
Yes, but it might take quite a long time, James, mightn't it?
It will, but yeah, good things come to those that wait as well. I think, with the campaigning and your own campaigning that goes back, 15 years or so.
Yeah, and the rest.
Another couple of years. It's worth holding out for. So I'm going to put my faith in her that she'll help us deliver it, and that the Parliament will ensure that it happens as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think in the end our Parliament have to be rational about this, otherwise they're all going to lose their seats. What's the European Parliament going to do, of course, is a completely separate question. James, you've got faith. Let's hope you're right. If we don't get a deal that works, she's made it clear that, no deal is better than a bad deal. What no deal means is we trade on World Organisation rules. What it means is that tariffs will go on products. What it means is that British exports of goods into the European market will attract tariffs of about £5 billion. They'll be £5 billion more expensive. But the reverse is true. We would then charge tariffs on European goods coming into Britain, and we would charge them £12 billion. So actually, you could argue that if we still bought and sold the same products, we'd actually financially be better off. The likely result is that actually things might be just a little, there might be a little bit less business going on. So that's the downside. The other downside is we'll be told that our financial services won't be able to access the European market freely, but actually 30 years into the single market, there's a whole raft of financial services that we can't sell into Europe anyway. So that's the worst case scenario, folks. That's as bad as it gets. And if there is no deal, we won't be paying 30 million a day. We'll have complete control of our borders and be free to trade with the world. No deal is a lot better than the current rotten deal that we've got as members. Kenneth in Edgware, are you pleased we're leaving the single market?
Well, you're jubilant over it. I'm certainly not. Let me just try and convert me if you can. For the last 20 years, I've run a business.
Kenneth, I'm not hearing you very clearly. Can we just try and get a fresh phone line? And I will do my best to convince you. Facebook messages pumping in. Pamela Epson says, if Juncker phones May and says she can't negotiate with the USA, is it not hard to say, yes, we can? Pamela, I absolutely get that. And that, I think, frankly, that will be the next campaign on the Prime Minister. The next campaign on the Prime Minister will be to crack on, not just with America, but with New Zealand and India and much of the rest of the world. Jesse on Facebook messages says, we must be out of the single market. It means we cannot be pushed into adopting the common fisheries policy. I'm pleased somebody has picked up my fisheries point, Jesse. My real worry is that our fisheries minister, George Eustace is his name, the fishing community sometimes change that to useless, but he said the other day he's very optimistic about British fishing because now we're leaving the European Union, we can negotiate better quotas. No, we don't want better quotas. We want our fishing rights back. Like Norway, like Iceland, we want to create tens of thousands of jobs. And on Facebook, Gary Hockler says, negotiations without Nigel. There is no other person around to speak for us. The EU mafia would quake in their shoes to sit opposite him again. Well, you're right. They don't want to see me. That is absolutely for certain. They can't wait, Gary, to see me out of that parliament. I've made their lives so miserable, and I've done it with a smile, which probably makes them hate me even more. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively here on LBC. It's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Can Theresa May's Brexit speech end the division and unite the nation? Or are there still too many unanswered questions?
Clive Bull on LBC.
Ah, the sound of the sea. There's only one place you'll hear bar staff offering over 50 varieties of vodka martini, because when it comes to exemplary service, only Celebrity Cruises has raised the bar this high. There's no extra mile we won't go, from reserving a heated lounger in our eucalyptus steam rooms to Eggs Benedict at 3 in the morning. If this sounds like heaven to you, then wait, there's more in a moment. Keep listening.
If you're a small business owner, you know how important it is to never miss a message. A missed message could be missed business. Grasshopper gets it. And that's why the Grasshopper Call Management System will not only notify you of voicemails, but Grasshopper will transcribe them and email them to you direct, so you'll get the message no matter what. Find out more about staying connected to clients at grasshopper.com.
What is the only bird that can fly backwards? What's the name for a fear of cheese? What are the pieces of paper from a hole punch called?
If you know, you have exceptional general knowledge. But at Hiscox, our insurance experts have chosen small business as their specialist subject. That's why more than 200,000 UK businesses rely on us to help provide the right cover. Hiscox, business insurance for the small and the brave.
And the answers: A, the hummingbird, B, turophobia, C, chads.
Irresistible things come to those who wait. Book a Celebrity Cruise before the end of February and you'll receive a free drinks package and up to £500 off selected sailings and staterooms. Why? Because right now the world is open and the sale is on. Visit celebritycruises.co.uk or contact your travel agent. Cruise Critic awarded, ABTA and ATOL protected.
Interest. If you're not getting much of a return on your savings, speak to Cufflink. Cufflink is not a bank, but are regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. You can lend your money with theirs into bricks and mortar. With Cufflink, you can get between 5 and 7.2% gross interest per annum. Talk to Cufflink at lendingtogether.co.uk and do something with your money. Past returns are not necessarily a guide to future returns. Your capital may be at risk.
This March, give a little bit of your time to join thousands of other collectors across the UK and make this year's Great Daffodil Appeal the biggest one yet. Raising money for Marie Curie nurses means they can go on giving their time and their care to people with a terminal illness. Every daffodil counts, so give a little bit of your time and get out and about for Marie Curie this March. We'll send you everything you need to make your collection a big success. Search Marie Curie online or text COLLECT to 70111. Text costs one message at your standard network rate.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
We're leaving the European Union. We're leaving the single market. We're getting our country back. The Prime Minister has given us very reassuring words today. A lot she hasn't said and a bad track record behind her, but definitely it is progress. And your text, your tweets, your Facebook message, your calls are coming in. I will try in the last few minutes to rattle through as many as I can. I love this tweet. A message for Theresa May. You've talked the talk. Now put on your £1,000 leather trousers and walk the walk. We are watching and waiting. And that's from Mike Clark. A text here. Nigel, this is probably the best thing that has happened to this country in my lifetime. Thanks for making it happen, Caroline from Woking. That's really sweet. Nigel, I voted out in 75 and again in 16, and I'm delighted with what May has said. But I'm worried that some undemocratic weasel will try and stop it with court cases. Andy from Dagenham. Right. Back to the calls. Let's try and get through a few. Let's rattle through as many as we can. And for those of you that can't get through, don't give up, please, because after the news at 8, Clive Bull will continue the conversation. We go to Liz in Stratford. Liz, a good day or a bad day?
Good day, Mr. Nigel Farage.
Right, good.
I'll tell you what happened.
Yep.
Theresa May tried to join the single market, but on her terms. And Juncker and company said to her very clearly, you can't have your cake and eat it. So she had no choice but to disappear.
Well, Liz, I don't know any more than you do what has happened behind closed doors in, well, now smokeless rooms in Brussels. And you may be right. I mean, it's interesting because I read out
I'm right.
Yeah, no, I read out what Mr. Verhofstadt said earlier, didn't I? Where he made the UK can't cherry pick. It's not an a la carte menu. Whatever the reasons, whatever the motivations, whether it was Mr. Juncker, whether it was massive pressure on her in this country, either way, she's done it. You're happy. And do you also, Liz, I'm going to ask you, do you think that we really can go global now as a country?
Well, it all depends, because other nations preferred to trade with a market, which was the EU.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. But, equally, we look at Switzerland, we look at other countries that are doing well. Liz, we'll see. Whether you're right or wrong, I don't know, but it's happened. Kenneth and Edgware, let's hope this phone line works.
Yes, I think we're okay now.
Right, far away.
So you are jubilant about this. Let me give you the other side of it.
Sure.
Someone that's run a business for 20 years, bringing in a fantastic range of Italian products.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. They now cost us nearly 20% more because of what you managed to have happen to the currency.
Whoa, Kenneth, whoa down there. Sterling started falling in July 2014. Was that my fault too?
No, not at all. But
thank you.
From June onwards, we're seeing it down to 18% it is today. And I think we're now going to face tariffs as well. I can't say that I'm very happy about it, and neither is my team. It probably will damage our business extremely. But how do I feel good about it, as you do?
Well, I get your point. If you're an importer, your costs have gone up because the pound has gone down. The pound has gone down for lots of reasons, not just Brexit. The pound was massively overvalued because of money that was pouring into this country to go basically into the property market and London and the home counties. The pound was too high for too long. Oh, and by the way, Kenneth, the pound was up today. The pound bounced strongly on the exchanges today. And in terms of tariff, Kenneth, you import from Italy. Come on, we are the Eurozone's biggest export market in the world. Surely.
We're not going to face tariffs.
Well, why should we? Now, we may, in the short term, because we may find that the Brussels obstructionists don't want a proper deal to happen, because they know if it does, that Denmark will want to leave, Austria will want to leave, and probably many other countries too. But even if we had tariff, that tariff would be smaller than the weekly fluctuation of currencies with any of us that trade, whether it's dollars or whatever it is. So, Kenneth, I get it. There are winners and losers in all of these things, but the idea that there should be some terrible tariff, to me, sounds ridiculous. If it does happen, it'll be a tiddler. Ahmed in High Wycombe, good day or a bad day?
Well, first of all, I voted to leave because I believe we are better off to leave.
Yes.
But my problem with your approach, Nigel,
Yep.
that you remind me with the third world country politician. Because A, your speech is full with contradiction. B, it's all talks rather than figures, facts.
Well, Ahmed, I've been called lots and lots of things.
Let me finish the first
but
point.
give me the contradictions, please.
The contradiction.
Yeah.
One side, I did like your approach when you said if we don't have good negotiator, if we are not experienced, we should bring from outside, like Singapore.
Yes.
Okay, bring it from outside. You are opening the door for immigrants. At the same time, you are anti-immigrants.
Ahmed, I'm talking. Ahmed, please, come on, old son. I'm talking about, a couple of dozen people from Singapore. I'm not talking about an open door to 500 million people.
I actually worked in Singapore, Nigel.
If you think that's a contradiction.
Have you worked in Singapore, Nigel?
No, I haven't. I'd love to. It sounds terribly exciting. I think they've created more millionaires per capita than anywhere in the last decade. They're doing phenomenal. Oh, and by the way, Ahmed, when Singapore broke away from the Greater Malaya, they were told they were too small to survive, and they've proved they can do it.
Have you visited Singapore?
No, Ahmed, for the second time, I haven't.
Right. I stopped counting visiting Singapore because I don't know, 13, 14 times I've been there, staying for a long time as an engineer. Singapore is like small, tiny London. It's cosmopolitan. And the only reason why Singapore is Singapore because of the diversity. We can't stamp the doors against migrants because lots of them, I am an example of that. You probably noticed that. I am an example. The only reason why I'm getting 6 figures salary because the company is getting much more as a revenue of my efforts.
Ahmed, we're not going to stop immigration. What we're going to do is control it sensibly, which is what the vast majority of the British people want. It's what the Prime Minister has promised us today. Only trouble is, she was doing that for 6 years as Home Secretary and failed ever to deliver. I wonder what Tom in Bristol makes of us leaving the single market. Tom, in favour or against?
I'm going into it with an open mind, really.
Okay.
To be honest, I voted Remain myself. However, slowly, sort of, over the course of, the past 6 months or so, I've slowly been coming around to the idea of us leaving. And the news today really, well, I think with what's going on in the world at the moment, how you've got Trump who's offering us a free trade deal essentially, and other countries have also been rather enthusiastic about it. It's impossible to be sort of cynical about that, really. It is really encouraging. But what I do find sort of the idea that it would be rather disturbing if we got to the end of this 2-year period after we've activated Article 50 and we do have to go to WTO rules. I don't doubt that we could, as a country, abide by those rules, but it would be such a financial shock to our nation. I honestly don't know what it would do to the economy. I think it would be devastating.
Well, Tom, that would be the worst case scenario, okay? But the argument I'm making is even in that worst-case scenario, the tariff on most goods would be about 2%, which is less, actually, than the weekly ups and downs of the pound against the euro or whatever currency actually in the world it may be. So this idea that going to WTO rules would mean us falling off a cliff, certainly in terms of goods, that is not true. But I understand people are worried, and they're used to us being in a common market or a single market, but the world outside is not one to fear. After all, most of the world is not in the EU single market. Good for them. John in northeast France, what have you got to say on today?
Good evening, Nigel.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'm not so far away from you. Probably your closest caller tonight, if you're still in Strasbourg.
No, I'm actually back in London, believe it or not, John.
Right,
and I'll be in New York tomorrow night, so there we are.
Well, good luck to you. Good luck to you. Everybody seems to know about Article 50
Yes.
of the Lisbon Treaty, and
Yes.
we're all experts on that now. But what a lot of people don't know is about Article 8 of the same treaty.
Yep.
And I've got it in front of me now.
Yep,
It's on
read
the
it out.
screen,
Read it out.
And I shall read it to you.
Yeah, do.
The Union should develop a special relationship with neighbouring countries aiming to establish an area of prosperity and good neighbourliness
Yes.
founded on the values of the Union and characterised by close and peaceful relations based on cooperation. Now,
John?
if the Commission,
John?
if the heads of state, if the Parliament choose to go against their own Lisbon Treaty, well, it just shows what they are.
The point you make to me, John, was made to me by my lawyer in Strasbourg yesterday, that actually they're committed as a political union to being good neighbours with their friends. If they turn their backs on that, we'll be even more pleased we've left. My final thought on this is today has been a good day. We've seen progress. She said things she's never said before. We're leaving the single market. If the deal's rotten, we will walk away. It's good. But we have to keep the pressure up because her track record on things like immigration has been appalling. But overall, we're making great progress. History is being made. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Tomorrow, I'll be coming live from New York at a slightly later time of 8 p.m. Coming up at 10, it's Ian Collins. But up next, to continue the conversation, it's Clive Bull.
Thank you, Nigel, and we'll be continuing this conversation. Coming up after the news, can Theresa May's Brexit speech end division and unite the nation? Or are there still far too many unanswered questions? I'll be getting a view from Labour and the Lib Dems, and we'll see how keen they are to heal the divide. And let me know what you think. Is it time to stop the squabbling? Later at 9, it's the Health Hour. London GP Dr. Sarah Jarvis will be here to answer your medical questions. And we'll be talking about Theresa May demanding GPs provide a 7-day service. The number you need to join in between now and 10, 0345 6060 973.
On FM.